This is what I call a career quake. It's your soul knocking inside you going, is this really what you want? I never realized it, like how much of our everyday interactions is all about work. I think I tied so much of my identity to work because I really loved what I did. I think I have sacrificed a lot to get to where I was. I think all of us have a definition of what there is. So I got there. And then I got there. Hi, I'm Uma. Welcome to Raw, a podcast about the messy, unfinished, beautiful middle of life. This season is different, more personal, more intimate, like a voice note from a friend. We'll explore career, identity, desire, failure, and reinvention. The things that you didn't even know needed a voice. If this resonates, follow and subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. It's Raw with Uma on every platform. Please leave a rating if you can to help keep the podcast free. And if you can, please do share it with just one other person today. If you've got a question or story you'd like me to unpack, drop it in the YouTube comments. It might just show up in a future episode. So, are you ready? Let's get raw. Everyone talks about career changes, but what happens when the ground beneath you shifts suddenly? And this is kind of what happened to me when I had this job change and my next plan didn't really show up. And, all the old answers didn't work for me anymore. And I was sitting in the middle of it, and the question wasn't why me, but what now? And so this is what I call a career quake. It's what I went through not too long ago as I left a very big career in tech and I had the next job lined up. That fell through. I went through the next interview for another big job and I sat there uninspired thinking, what am I doing to myself? I decided to venture out as an entrepreneur and then all of that collapsed in grief 9-10 months later because I just didn't allow myself to process this whole loss of identity. And so I was trying to find a word for it, which happened to me in 2025, and it really felt like a quake for me. So a career quake is really when, for me, everything was going so well. It was great that I got this redundancy. A lot of people were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, I'm really happy I got it. So everything was great. I had always aspired to be CEO. I think all of us have a definition of what there is. So I got there. And then I got there and the view wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I was trying to find the word because I had great bosses. I loved my team. I loved what I did, my job. It wasn't toxic. It wasn't burnout. And so I was trying to find a different word to describe how being shaken up after you leave behind this identity. I spent so many hours at work, and much like you do, I'm sure, that my title was something that I clung on to so closely. It really mattered what job title you have on LinkedIn, that you have a job at all. And so suddenly you take that away and there's nothing. I wasn't expecting to feel grief. Just processing all of this got me to this word, career quake. And so now I would describe it as this. It's when suddenly all of the things that you expected to work out for you in the way that your career should is something you question all over again. It's your soul knocking inside you going, is this really what you want? Is this you based on the person that you are now and the person you will become? It's when you sit in the rubble and ask really difficult questions of yourself and you make really choiceful decisions that, for me, disappointed a lot of people. I guess I just wanted to make sure I didn't disappoint myself. And so it's a quake that is related to what you think your career should look like. And then suddenly all of that is blown into smithereens. And so how do you know that you're going through one? For me, it was, actually, I didn't know. I'm just now reflecting in hindsight. But what I do know now that I didn't know then was when, I got there and it wasn't the view that I thought it was going to be, I didn't feel as energized at the thought of getting another big role with a big paycheck. It didn't give me joy. It didn't feel like I was using all of my gifts and everything that I know myself and my potential to be. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life in tech, being like one of the few colored women in Asia that would just dominate the tech world. That was my thing. And then suddenly this thing is not what you thought was going to be the thing. I then went through grief. I now know in hindsight that grief is important for anything that you love. So where there is love, there is grief. I went through grief because I loved my career. I loved what I did. I loved the team. I loved the company. I loved my bosses. I had a great time and it was amazing. And I'm so grateful for that experience. And so I didn't take the time to actually grieve through the loss of that identity, the job, just being in corporate, being wanted, being seen, all of that, being needed as well. So I think all of that coming together for me is kind of the signs of going through a career quake. The first steps, if you're going through one, for me was actually to introduce stillness into my life. I did not take time to listen to myself. I kept doing and filling up my calendar. I think it was very uncomfortable for me to have an empty calendar. I just filled it up with a whole bunch of things like cleaning out my office room, going for my workouts, building the business. I became an entrepreneur. That's when I crashed. I was in Italy. I was with two very close friends and I couldn't get out of bed. And I was like, what is going on? I don't understand this. Like, I am a person that is glass half full. I couldn't get out of bed. I'd sleep till 11 and then I dragged myself out to just have a conversation with them. And most days I didn't even want to talk. I would just sit on the sofa and they'd be like, here, just sit there, have your cup of tea. We're going to just let you be, like something you need to process. I'd become annoyed at messages I would get. I'd shut down everything. I think I reached that tipping point and I just knew like that was the time I needed to just slow down and process. So it's been 18 months of going through this. I'm just, coming out on the other side. So I don't have neat answers for you. I'm just sharing kind of like what I went through. You're probably wondering if you have a great career and everything is going well, or if you're in a toxic environment, or if you're switching careers, could you go through a career quake? Absolutely. I think career quakes are very personal to individuals. This is just my story and how I went through it. And mine was everything positive, and then this whole shift inside me of just trying to align to who I am becoming as a person and what felt true to me. And I think our bodies has a way of knowing if we are aligning ourselves to what we are meant to do. And so that shift when it comes to what we define as careers today is something that, we're going to feel when your soul or the universe is knocking at you going, I don't think this one is it. So I was working at a company, hundreds of people will let go. It's normal. I think we live in times when redundancies and restructuring is very common. So a lot of people out there are being let go. It's normal. The thing to do is you want to quickly announce that next job because that is where our identity is formed. I mean, even when you meet somebody at a networking event or, you're introduced to somebody, you say your name and then that's followed immediately by what you do, right? People most often just ask you next, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. What do you do? And then what do you do is always, what is your job? And that almost kind of defines who you are. So I think I carried a big identity of my career with me. And so having nothing to announce on LinkedIn was almost shameful, was almost like I failed, that I didn't make it. Nobody wanted me. And then I go to networking events and, you do the whole thing about so-and-so. My name is, and I work for. Now, I had a nonprofit and all that, so I kind of plugged that in. But I was like, oh my gosh, I never realized it. How much of our everyday interactions is all about work and how close our identity is tied to our jobs. So yeah, nothing to announce on LinkedIn, and that was an uncomfortable moment for me. I think I tied so much of my identity to work because I really, 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 really loved what I did, and I gave so much of my time, energy, even my health to my work. I think I have sacrificed a lot to get to where I was, that when you are so invested to this thing that is not only allowing you to live the life that you want, but also, you are needed at work. You feel like you're delivering value. People see you. All of those things are so important to us. And a job gives us all of that. And if not more, especially if you love it. And I think that's why for me, that was a big part of my identity. I think it was the only part of my identity until I started a nonprofit of my own. I got to meet Cody Sanchez in Vegas just a few months ago, and I heard her saying this thing that women are some of the most underdone, overtrained people. And what she means is that, we're so busy going after this certification, that certification, and all of that. Meantime, 25-year-old guy has watched 2 YouTube videos and he's off to the races. And so I think it's so pertinent, especially for women, that we can show achievements, because I think we hustle so much harder. We want to show that we can make it. Women are often judged on our performance, but men on potential. So showing that performance and the proof of that performance comes through those certificates, those job titles, those awards, and all of that is so important. So yeah, that's just part of it. So if you are feeling the tremors of a career quake, where could you start? I wish someone had told me this before. I don't know if I would have listened to them, but for me, I only figured this out like a year in. And that is to sit without any distractions and to invite stillness into your life. And I think that is a step that is critical for you to listen to what the voice inside you is telling yourself, what the universe might be saying to you. I remember, being in Houston, and I was trying to catch up on the number of steps per year, and I was trying to exceed last year's record on my Aura Ring. And so I'd go out and I'd be walking for hours, and I'd have my AirPods in. I'd be like, okay, I am going to get through as many episodes of Diary of the CEO as I can that I missed out throughout the year. And then I realized I was still doing. I wasn't being, so even like having AirPods in your ear is still considered doing. You're consuming information. There is no quiet. So I started walking without my AirPods, and I have like a zoo in my head. I don't know if you have one too, but it took me a good 2 weeks of walking to clear the zoo in my head. And then I could invite new thoughts and ideas in. And, I wrote so much. I came up with so many different ideas, etc. My brain wasn't empty, but I gave it space, and I processed a lot of things that happened to me throughout the year, wrote a letter to myself. I think this is the beauty and magic of creating stillness in your life, and I'm trying to do that every day. I'm not always successful at it because I'm simply not making time for it, but just 2 minutes a day and just trying to be still with myself so I can listen to what is it that I'm feeling, what is it that I am thinking about, and why, and what might the universe be sending to me is just something I'm trying to get better at it. I think the universe is talking to us all the time. And when you go through something like this, a career quake, this is the gift, in that you are finally giving yourself the time and the space to think about what could be next. And I'm a big believer that actually all the answers are inside you and within you. And the only way to hear those answers is to be still. And there's a whole bunch of tools and exercises that I've used myself, which I'll be sharing with you in this podcast. But I've come to appreciate it as this truly amazing gift. Do I think career quakes are necessary? I think yes, if you want to get on a path for what you are truly meant to do in your life and earn great money with it. Because I think it's fine if you love what you do right now and you continue doing it. But if you believe that you are here for a higher calling like I am. I believe the universe has dreamt a much bigger dream for me. So whatever dreams I have, it is much bigger. And my number one job is to figure out what is that dream and align myself to it. And so I see a career quake as a gift to the bridge to that. So if you've been questioning, is this it? Am I meant to do something else? I think this is why Careerquakes can be a gift. I went through my own career quake kind of mostly by myself, but with the support of a tribe. I think that's one of the most important things to have. Not just any people, the people who will not judge, will not question, will not be, buying 10 self-help books and dumping it on you. They're just there to be with you, to feel with you. I think those are the kind of friends you want to have. Definitely don't try and navigate it alone. At least my experience is that, it really did help to have friends around me. I am terrible at asking for help. I am learning to ask for help more. But in the beginnings of this, I kind of went through all of that on my own. And I wished I had opened up and talk to my friends a little bit more so that they could have supported me better. I only really got to their help later. So yeah, so important to have a great tribe around you when you go through a career quake. One of the biggest questions that I asked myself was, what is the definition of my rich life? I did this at the start of the year last year, and this I learned from Ramit Sethi, How to Live a Rich Life. And I just kind of took everything he talks about in that book and sat down and made a whole bunch of notes on my phone about it. So for example, my definition of a rich life does not involve buying property, which is very unheard of, at least in this part of the world. And buying property is seen like, a sense of security, a sense of investment, etc. I never want to do that. I have zero interest in doing that, so I will be renting for the rest of my life. And I think I have enough friends with houses now that if anything happens, I should be able to live with one of them. But what I do want is to drink really nice champagne and wine. I want to fly in front of the plane. I want to have great life experiences. So I have a list of what defines my rich life. That was one of the first exercises that I did as I was navigating, just leaving the corporate world, going through the redundancy, getting the news that this next job wasn't going to happen. That was one of the best starting points that I had. And so in the next episode, I'm going to share with you the 10 questions that I asked myself. So what you heard on this episode was that saying no to the obvious career choices wasn't the hard part for me. It was really that explaining it to people who didn't understand. And if you are going through the same thing, in the next episode, I'd love to share with you the 10 questions that were the most useful for me when I was going through a career quake. And because I'm from tech, I use tech to help me. So I'm going to be giving you some AI prompts that's going to help you reflect. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode and listening to Raw, for sitting with me in this messy, unfinished, beautiful middle. If something in this episode resonated, I'd love that if you could follow and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Instagram. It's Raw with Uma everywhere. Please, if you can, leave a rating on Spotify. It'll help keep the podcast free for listeners. And if you can think of one person this episode will be super useful for, please share it with them, because the conversations we need most often starts one-to-one. Have you got a question or thought you'd like me to unpack in a future episode? Drop it in the YouTube comments and I'll bring it into the conversation. I'm Uma and this is Raw.